A very good evening to one and all, and welcome to a wonderful session and a very, very different session brought to you by Project Step One, PCMH Restore Health, and AFPI Karnataka. I welcome the doctors for today's session. Dr. B.C. Rao, who's a family physician and mentor for AFPI Karnataka, and we have Dr. Ramakrishna Prasad, who is a founder and director of PCMH Restore Health, and he's also vice president at AFPI Karnataka. I welcome you all, doctors, and thank you so much for coming on the panel with such a different topic. And we have for the surprise, we have already collected around maybe 15 to 20 questions that we have received from our audience, and we have a few audience live as well who are waiting to ask you a few questions. So, how are you feeling to joining us on the panel, doctor?
Thank you so much, Shruti. It's always a pleasure. All the previous sessions on Step One have been really wonderful, and for me, it's always a pleasure and privilege on two fronts. One, to conduct a session like this with Dr. B.C. Rao, who is a legend in family medicine, and secondly, to be able to connect to people directly. It's an immense pleasure. So very much looking forward to this session. Dr. Rao, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I think you said most of what I wanted to say. Yeah, this kind of interaction is good in the sense that both being primary care, family physicians, our view of illness, health, how to manage people, patients, and illnesses would be a bit different from other doctors. So probably this kind of interaction will benefit the people and society in general. So then first question, without much further discussion, RK, will you
read that question?
Sure,
yeah, absolutely.
Doctor, before we begin today's session, can I give a small introduction on Project Step One? Is that okay?
Please, go ahead, Shruti. Thank you.
Right. So everybody knows that Project Step One is a 100% volunteer-run free telemedicine service. We are a 11-month-old initiative that provides free telemedicine to COVID-19 impacted citizens across 18 states and India's 18 languages. We have touched more than 50 million lives through 2.3 million teleconsultations. This has been possible because of our community of citizen volunteers, doctors, and of course our counselors. So if you are a doctor watching this session, then please do give us a missed call on 080-471-92219 to join the largest doctor volunteer group. And if you are a volunteer, if you wish to volunteer and you are a citizen, then please give us a missed call to 080-619-72266. Thank you so much. Doctors, usually we have a lot of medical questions or problems that we have always wanted to ask the doctors, and we haven't been able to because of a fear, or maybe we are a little conserved in asking those questions to the doctors. And today you're here giving us an opportunity to ask those questions to you. So without taking much time, I give it over to Dr. R.K. Prasad for the wonderful session. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Shruti. And before we get started, I really want to thank all the participants who shared their questions. It was wonderful to see at least 30 questions that have come up, and it really warms our heart to do so. So without further ado, let me start with the first question. Dr. Rao, I'll request you to take this one. So the question goes this way. One of our viewers has asked, I sneeze every morning as soon as I wake up, about 15 to 20 times. This happens when I step out for the first time in the day or sun. Is this something serious? Why does this happen?
Yeah. At the outset, let me reassure him that this is not serious at all. But then the question is, why does he sneeze when he gets out of the house? The simple answer is, we are surrounded by atmospheric particulate material, and some of them are allergic. They induce allergy in our nasal lining of our nostrils. So inside the house, probably he lives well and the allergen load is so much less. When he gets out of the house, he is exposed to a load of allergens and then he starts sneezing. And he is very fortunate that he's only sneezing 15, 20 times and then he stops.
Yeah.
This gentleman may be concerned, but he has no illness and I would not give him any medication.
Okay. Just to add a personal note, a few people in my own family, my wife included, she sometimes sneezes in the morning, and again, she doesn't take any medications for this, but lots of allergies.
Yeah, but then occasionally what happens, the sneezing can be incessant.
True.
And then, with the blockage of the nostrils and then a lot of distress, these people need interference. That too judicially decided that, there are oral antihistamines which act, but they have their own problems. Some of them cause drowsiness. So you weigh the pros and cons of treatment versus non-treatment and advise the patient accordingly.
Absolutely. In some ways, in Bangalore, we have the double whammy. Lots of trees, lots of pollen, lots of allergies, but also lots of pollution. And so Dr. Rao, you've been practicing for 50 plus years, and you've seen really the transformation of Bangalore. Has this increased in the last few years?
It's pretty, it's interesting. It's not the hydrocarbon pollutants that set up allergy generally. They cause locally irritation, but they don't cause the allergic reaction with edema, watering, itching. It is the biological material, that is what you said, pollen, animal droppings, dander, this kind of a thing. And there was a time, even the city center was infested with a weed called Parthenium, which was spewing millions of spores into the atmosphere.
That's Congress weed.
Yeah,
Congress
the
weed.
famous name for the weed which came in from the US as a gift to us from the US.
Okay.
In the wheat, they sent us wheat in the early 60s, I think, to tide over the crisis of we were facing famine in those days. Okay, that apart. So like that, when once this kind of allergen is around you, you tend to sneeze more. As far as I'm concerned, the incidence of asthma has moved towards the periphery of the city much more than the center of the city. Asthma and allergy, nasal allergy are younger and elder brothers. Like the younger brother who is less of a nuisance is in the nose. The elder brother who is much of a nuisance is in the lungs, and it needs treatment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Rao. Just maybe a bonus point. Sometimes we see the opposite of this, where people don't have have sneezing or wheezing outside the house, but they enter their house and start wheezing or sneezing. Sometimes this is because of pets that they may have, cats,
and also
dogs,
house dust.
House dust.
Yeah. See, in our living, what happens? We shed a lot of skin. The cells of the skin in the dermal skin, which we shed without our knowledge, of course, it gets into the dust, house dust, we call it house dust. And there's a tiny organism lives there called house dust mite. And this mite is mighty in setting up allergy.
Sure.
And that is the reason why inside the house there is the kind of allergic reaction that we see.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rao. Shall we take the next question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, another of our viewers has asked this very important question. He says, I'm assuming it's a he, it could be a she. Lately, I've been wanting to have a drink earlier and earlier in the afternoon. And I find that it's getting harder to stop after just one or two drinks. What kind of treatments could help with this?
Yeah, this is a question which you have to deeply ponder over. This is many dimensions. Now, why does one drink? Now, why does one drink in the forenoon? That means this person who is asking this question has a compulsion to drink. So here, alcohol is being used as a medicine initially, or as a sedative initially, and then he gets used to it, and the brain cells, which get used to a certain level of the substance, will demand more and more. So the urge to drink becomes worse and worse as the days go by, and this person is in serious trouble. And he needs counseling, he needs meeting with people, probably alcoholic anonymous kind of state. He's in pre-alcoholic stage, or he has already become an alcoholic. So he is in serious danger of becoming and ruining his life. So I would take this question very, very seriously.
I agree. But I want to also commend the person who's asked this question.
Yes.
Many of us in society may be suffering from something similar, but it requires actually courage to come out and even ask a question like this. So whoever has asked this, I really commend you for the courage to ask this question. Look, there are multiple resources available that can help you. The very fact that you are recognizing this as an issue is already the first step towards finding a solution. Dr. Rao mentioned Alcoholics Anonymous, which is an organization, and they have meetings every evening. You could approach one of them, or come and speak to a family doc or one of us, or and we can definitely guide you.
There are, in case he is motivated to give up, there are medications which we can start him on, and then keep in touch with this. That is beauty of family medicine. They keep coming to you, and you know him or her. It's generally him than her, but things are changing over the lately. More women have started drinking.
True.
They are equally prone, or probably more prone, because they face so many more problems in social setup as we have than men do. So it's always better that he keeps in touch with his own physician, and preferably a family physician, because he would know the problem that this youngster is facing. I presume that this is a youngster really, and then we can really help them out.
Yeah, and young or old, because we see this across the age spectrum. Sometimes use of alcohol, especially increasing use of alcohol, is sometimes to mask an underlying pain or psychological discomfort or emotional problem.
100%. In fact, it is well known that a high percentage of people who take to drink are depressives, and to overcome the depression they take to alcohol. So it is well known. So if there is a background psychiatric condition, even there a family physician is better positioned to understand and treat, because he is practicing in the community.
Right, and may know the family, may know the financial situation or stresses, may know who else is in the family. So thank you for asking this question, and please do seek help. There is help in multiple ways and many resources that can be used to your assistance. Shall we take the third question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I think this is another very important problem, and so this person asks, recently I noticed that I keep forgetting a lot of things, and no, it's not due to a lack of concentration. What can be done? I'm confused. Doc.
Yep. Another interesting question in more than one sense. Over years, I'm seeing a shift from physical illness more towards mental illness, whether are mentally related issues, let us put it as that. Whether it is because we are recognizing more of these, or the illnesses themselves have become more, I'm not very sure. But it is certain that these problems have come to the fore. This gentleman, I don't know, he has not given his age, but
we need not assume that it's a gentleman.
Yeah, forgetting a lot of things due to lack of concentration is a dicey sentence, because concentration and memory are not really related in that sense. But then, if your brain is occupied and your mind is going astray all the time, then what is required to be done, you don't do. So you may that way forget things to do. But actual memory loss in a young person is rare. It is always a problem of middle age to older age, especially for recent memory. And if it becomes so severe that sometimes they can't manage their day-to-day affairs, which we call as dementia. Early onset dementia is much more dangerous than late onset dementia. Early onset means in the age of, let us say, 50s and 60s, than late onset dementia. But dementia is becoming a major problem as in this country more and more people are living to old age. And they have their own set of problems, older age group, and it's I have no, because we don't have a pakka medicine to suggest, okay, you take this, you will regain your memory. There is nothing that I can suggest. But in my practice, when I see them, I say, now it's time that important work that is required to be done. Let us say you have to go to the bank, or you have to do some work, you have to go to a shop to get something. These things you please write it down. So that when you read, when you get up next morning, you read, okay, I have to do these things. So it will act as a reminder to you to what you should do. But if you don't do that, and if you want to recollect what I should do today, which I had promised somebody to do, now I don't remember, that will land you in problem.
Sure. So yeah, Doc, in my practice, I see there are 3 or 4 contexts in which I hear people express something like this, forgetfulness. One is sometimes children, if they're under a lot of pressure from parents or the school in terms of academic performance. Sometimes I hear either the parents say that the child keeps forgetting. That sometimes it comes up, and usually it's because of stress. It's not really a medical condition, but it's just sometimes children are under tremendous academic pressure, expectations, the burden of expectations.
I agree. You see, what has happened, the stress levels in which we live in our day-to-day lives have gone up enormously in the past several. And then the expectations. See, now what happens, sometimes the mind is such, it doesn't want to do which is aberrant, which it doesn't like to do. So it comes in handy for a schoolboy to say, I can't remember, because he subconsciously doesn't want to do that particular lesson, or he doesn't like the teacher. He doesn't want to go to that class. He may not be lying actually. Many times parents think that the child is lying, but that is not always true.
Or sometimes they're just scared. They're scared of punishment or scared of something.
So this forgetfulness, by and large, is more common in the older age group.
True. Dr. I think the question is so important, and this topic is so important, because India, one of the other transitions happening in our society is we are aging. Our on average, by the number of people who are above 60 today is many-fold more than the number of people who are above 60 a few decades back. And in a few years, this population will be larger than I think the entire population of the US or something like that. So we need to.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And I tell you, family medicine doctors are ideally placed to handle problems related to old age.
Yeah.
Because they practice in the community, and most of the elderly are in their homes.
Right. Right. So doctors, especially family medicine doctors, making home visits, I think is a critically needed service. Um, what we'll do is, I'm told that there's some audience participation, and there's someone who has joined live to ask us a question.
That's
Yeah, Shruti, can I request
Doctor.
you?
So we have Banu here who wants to ask you a question. So, hi,
Welcome,
Banu.
Bhanu.
Banu, are
Hello,
you?
hello, doctor.
Hi, Bhanu. Hi.
Yes, I can. And doctor, I have one question. Okay, I have a daughter aged 14, and I feel she doesn't want to mix with the rest of the family. The reason not known. How do we get through this, doctor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Now, what did you say your name was, my girl?
Bhanu. Bhanu.
Banu. See,
Yes, yes.
this is a problem with. See, there is a growing girl who is. The parents are not aware of her activities, usually outside the house. How is she? What are her friends outside the house? Whom she is moving with? What is her school, relationship with the classmates in the school? Whether she is getting into a kind of a serious relationship, how her teachers are treating her, multiple issues come into the play, and the girl is bringing all these issues home, and then she is incapable of discussing this, or she is afraid of discussing her problems with the mother or the father. And two, these days grandparents are generally not there. If they are there, they would have been great help. So the only person who is available is her doctor, and maybe she is otherwise physically so fit that she thinks, the parents don't think it's a matter that they should take her to their doctor. So it is incumbent on the mother, who is generally the one closest to the child, to take the girl into confidence and then find out what is bugging her. And that is three-fourths of the solution.
No, absolutely. See, that stage of life is actually a very challenging stage of life. Expectations are increasing. A young person has to become more and more independent. There are all kinds of hormonal surges happening. The body of a youngster is changing by itself. Some, especially a girl, might be coming to terms with things like having periods, menstruation. And I think the magic mantra, in many ways, has 3 steps. Number one, to be non-judgmental. Maybe there's nothing wrong with her. Active listening, just listening. How are you doing? How's life going for you? Is something bothering you? And not necessarily trying to solve that problem immediately. And third, expressing empathy. When someone says, especially a powerful role model like a mother or father or grandparent or someone who says, well, I can just imagine how challenging this might be for you. Many times it really unlocks communication and creates a path forward in terms of solutions.
Even, especially these last about, let's say 15 years, 10 to 15 years, exposure to the internet. And
that's a good point. Yep.
And the related, you see, they're exposed to, whether you like it or not, you can fireball your computer, but the children have access, I'm telling you. If not in your home, they go outside and have an access. So access to pornography is common across the board. And they're thoroughly confused. And at home, the atmosphere is such that the mother and the father generally don't discuss issues related to sex. So the sexual awakening that takes place in that child is so very confusing and demanding that she or he has nowhere to go. And they just ask each other friends. And the friends are as confused as the victim. So they don't get proper guidance. And the schools have counselors and trained in psychology, but then even there they're afraid of going. So this girl needs to be taken into confidence, and all these should be discussed with her. The mother is the best one to discuss, and if the mother is reluctant herself to discuss, then she should take this girl to the family physician. Hopefully, that family physician is somebody who knows how to handle these issues.
Sure, Doc. I think you brought up the issue of the internet. Something else which we are definitely seeing is patterns of socialization or social interaction are changing with smartphones. And in fact, my own children sometimes tell me you're on the phone a lot. So this is something which is definitely I think changed and is changing.
I agree. Technology, in fact, some of them tell me you're anti-technology. Not true. Technology has to be used for our good. If a child should be playing outside in the field with other children and should not be bogged down with a smartphone and access to so many things which are not good for the child.
Thank you, Bhanu, and thanks, Dr. Rao. While this might not have been a very specific answer, I hope it gives you a few clues as to how you might approach a conversation with your daughter. Shruti, I think you have one more caller, right?
Yes, we do have. Kritika is here to ask one question. So,
Sure.
hi, Kritika.
Welcome,
Can you
Kritika.
proceed with the question?
Yeah, hi. Well, I just wanted to check because I have a son and he's extremely addicted to these web series and all that, just to probably stay in touch with his peers and his group of friends. I am not so very much okay and open to this one, but I really don't know if I can stop him completely from watching it. And I mean, I really don't know how to react to such a situation. Can you
Okay.
help me in this?
Thank you, Kritika.
What was the question? I didn't get it.
Yeah, I can. Thank you, Kritika. I think you asked a very pertinent question, and all of us struggle with this. So the question Kritika was asking was just to repeat your question. So she has a teenage son, and teenage son watches a lot of web series on the internet, on TV, and perhaps it is linked with some of the peer interactions. His friends are also watching. Now, Kritika as a mom is not very comfortable with the amount of screen time, the amount of time and energy her son is spending on the web series, but doesn't know where to draw the line, how to balance whether she can completely ask him to stop, or how does one approach a very sensitive issue?
Asking him to stop is antagonizing the boy.
Antagonizing the boy. Okay, sure, yeah.
You see, the other thing one could do is to involve him in activities which are more interesting than what he's doing. Now you can take him to a play, or take him outside for a walk, or involve him in community-related activity, so that he enjoys doing it. Or we
So replacing this with something
So
healthier.
what happens is in that, I tell you, it's easily said than done actually. If you don't provide a playing field to a child, and you tell the mother, I say, take your daughter or son to play cricket. What kind of nonsense I am talking about?
Correct. Where is the field and where?
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the activities that I am suggesting to be appealing to the son, so that he will spend less time. And secondly, I don't know whether that spending time in the smartphone series, watching web series, is for entertainment, or is it to while away his time, or is it something which is really important to him?
Or is it because of peer pressure?
Possible. So you have to, and then mothers and fathers can also quietly tell, look here, son, oh, we are worried, your future is going to be ruined, you become a useless fellow, you become, a drug addict, this kind of addiction to this will not work. Because almost always, this is a passing phase in their lives.
Okay. I think
it need not continue. But what worries me is lack of physical exercise. If this boy who is, let us say, 15-year-old boy spends 8 hours in the school and then 4 hours in front of his computer, he's neglecting his physical health. I find this is a major problem. I find childhood obesity. I'm scared of the youngster when they come bring somebody to me and some other illness. I find he is obese. I spend much more time tackling his obesity rather than the illness which the mother has brought him to me.
Sure.
I mean, this is beside the point.
Sure.
What I'm trying to say is that you should be very gentle in handling this situation. But the reassuring part of it is that they generally go over this.
I'll just add to the silver line that Dr. Rao has provided. Sometimes, many of our children, they're actually much smarter and sometimes mature, a lot more mature than we give them credit for. So sometimes involving them in that conversation to say, for example, Dr. Rao laid out, why does he watch the web series so much? Is it something that is very important to him? Is it peer pressure? Is he bored? Does he not have another avenue? So sometimes involving the child or the teenager in an open conversation and setting a goal or a plan of action collectively sometimes does work and definitely should be approached as a first step. So thank you, Kritika. Shruti, I know you have one more person before we take some other questions.
Yes, absolutely, Doctor. We have Ria with us. Hi, Ria. Can you hear me?
Welcome, Ria.
Hi, Shruti. Yes, I can.
Thanks, Ria. So go ahead with your question.
Hello, doctor. Good evening. I'm Priya. Actually,
Hi, Ria.
hello, doctor. So I have a question to ask, and there are certain things that I wish to share with someone, but can't, and also can't keep within myself. So this leads to a lots of mood swing and bad mood. What can I do, doctor?
Thank you so much for, I can imagine how challenging something like this must be. So thank you for bringing such an important question.
Yeah.
Doc, very sensitive issue, very real issue, human issue, regardless of whether you're a doctor or not a doctor, we all face this to varying extents, of course. But
see, not at all uncommon. If you have relationships, social relationships, these can happen between individuals, between father and son, wife and husband, sons and daughters. And so what happens in this kind of a situation, a lot of issues come up, which sometimes a woman, I'm generalizing it, I'm not saying only her issue, she may be having one of these issues. Supposing the wife knows or suspects that the husband is not sincere or worries about it, but she can't express it to anyone. She is scared, so she keeps it to herself and comes out with this kind of a problem. The other is same related issues. The mother-in-law may be persecuting the daughter-in-law, but the daughter-in-law cannot express this to the husband. The husband is a very loving son of the mother. So she is antagonizing by telling the husband she will think that, what kind of a woman my wife is, so she suffers. She may have a close friend who is in distress, but she cannot say that close friends distress to close friends husband. So she is suffering. So there are many intricate situations which they cannot express, and they suffer the consequences of that built-in tension. And how to sort it out? The only person is either a counselor who is trained in handling these issues, or your own family physician. So sadly, seems to be a disappearing breed. Fortunately, there are people like you who are taking over. So what happens with a family physician is he knows you, he knows the family, probably 2-3 generations, and he can make a valid guess, reasonable guess, what could be bugging you.
And sometimes it's not even, sometimes there are certain things which are hard to necessarily solve very easily. But being heard and hearing itself is therapeutic. So healing happens through listening. So, please, as Dr. Rao said, if it's hard for you to express some of these things to someone close to you or around you, please seek out a family physician or a counselor, and sometimes it is extremely beneficial. Thank you very much. Doc, we have 15-20 more minutes. Shall we take a few more?
The question about the person with heart, he had a heart attack or something.
Yeah, right. There was a question by somebody about his heart. Shall we take that?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
That's
Sure. So one of the questions is, I'm a 45-year-old. Should I start a cardiac rehab program to make my heart stronger? I had a mild heart attack a year ago. What would you say?
You see, here is a gentleman, a typical scenario you see these days. That's why I thought this question was really relevant. There are two things that you should consider. What led to the heart attack? And secondly, what he should do now. His question is what he should do now.
Yeah, sure.
So let's take that first. See, soon after, he says it's a mild heart attack, most probably involving one of the vessels or one of the branches of vessels. And then presumably no further intervention was done, or a few interventions were done which we don't know.
Yeah.
But generally what happens is a few, usually about 6 to 8 weeks as far as I know, after an episode, they subject them to a stress test, wherein a person is made to exercise, and a series of ECGs are taken while he is exercising, and they will assess the cardiac function. This is done that time, and then again it is done after a while, maybe 3 to 6 months, and that will give you, the physician, an idea as how strong his heart is. Based on that, we can put him on a rehab program.
Right.
If his treadmill is negative, he is as good as you and me. So
Assuming you and me are. Assuming you and me.
more you than me. Anyway, so he can play, he can do what he wants to do. But then again, supposing he has not been used to any exercise at all, he can't go and play 3 sets of tennis.
True.
I would put him on a rehab program, which is gradual and progressive.
Sure.
And over a period of 3 to 6 months, I will see that he reaches the exercise level which his person, which may mean he's shedding weight, changing his dietary habits, seeing what medication he is on, what comorbidities he has got. All these come into the picture.
Absolutely. I think interacting sometimes with Ayurvedic physicians, they use these 3 terms. They say ahara, vichara, vihara. I think, I think what you described, absolutely. It's about shifting our imagination of ourselves, the mindset with which we approach our health. It's also about lifestyle, like what's the activity profile we choose, and of course our diet, and reducing or avoiding certain risk factors. Definitely, smoking is a huge risk factor. Um, and you know how well we cope with stress, because more and more we are seeing younger and younger people in their 40s suffer heart attacks, you know, and the like. So thank you for whoever asked this question. It's a very pertinent question to our times.
There will be viewer people who are watching this program. They must understand the importance of exercise and food habits.
Right, right.
If you don't exercise, I can guarantee you you're in trouble. Today's lifestyle is such, as I said, you don't provide a playing field to a child and then ask him to play tennis. Here, the situation wherein there are no walking paths, there are no cycling paths, you ask a person to cycle, but then you can take exercise at home. It doesn't need a gym. You can exercise for the sake of exercise in your own bedroom or drawing room, or outside your compound, or in front of a tree in front of your house. Nobody prevents you from exercising. It is your own mind which makes you, okay, I don't have facility, so I don't have treadmill. I can understand a schoolboy complaining, but I don't understand a 40-year-old complaining that I have no access to exercise. But the problem is not just that. Problem is availability of time.
Or there are time. Sometimes
there
it's also a choice.
There are computer professionals I know who have no time. And I have seen the kind of food that is provided to them. It is so rich that one meal a day is also more than sufficient.
Sure, sure. One of a very memorable quote by one of our fellow senior family physicians, Dr. Subramaniam, actually, was that if you don't eat food like medicine, you will eat medicine like food. This is something I've heard him say, and it's a very memorable thing that has stuck with me.
This is the reason why we are seeing so many getting into heart attacks and problems, which was not there 50 years ago. And the poverty diet or the upper poor people eat is the best food, if I tell sometimes. That's what we ate those days.
Yeah, it's between a rock and a hard place, right?
All right, let's
okay. Yeah. So we'll take one more question. What are the symptoms of a panic attack?
Okay.
How do I know if I have one? Great question. Thank you so much.
Yeah. This is a very good question because it's quite commonplace. Panic attack means a person who is having some severe symptoms which he cannot cope with. Like his heart rate goes up, he starts sweating, he feels like nauseous, and then his hands tremor, he develops tremors, and he is thoroughly restless. He cannot perform his function. If he is in a room, he feels like running outside the room. And occasionally there is a reason. But quite often there is no reason. They themselves don't know why these panic attacks happen. Actually, this is an illness.
Right.
And people who suffer from panic attacks, if they don't know the reason, they need treatment.
Right. Actually, this question reminds me, I met someone just this week in my practice. Young person, 27 or so, all of a sudden developed chest pain and shortness of breath. Where had gone to multiple doctors actually, and his heart rate at one of the hospitals we went to was 130. his blood pressure, so there are two numbers in the blood pressure reading, the systolic or the upper number and the lower number of the diastolic, was something like 170/80. His upper number was 170. And I mean, you could see he was when he met me, you could see he was sweating. The pace at which he was speaking was faster than you expect, and he described that this just hit him out of the blue. He would not have known, and he actually went to a hospital, and the hospital had done an ECG, they had done an echocardiogram, they had connected him to a cardiologist. No, this is typical of a panic attack, and again, sometimes the pathway to understanding why someone is having a panic attack lies in understanding the context of that person and in listening to that person and being listened to. So again,
to just another word, sometimes there is a reason. He may have found that his friend had a heart attack and passed away.
Sure.
So he thinks he will also get a heart attack.
Sure.
That sets up panic. Second thing is he finds that he owes somebody some money, and he has to return it in a particular time frame. He cannot do that.
Right.
That sets up
or uncertainties, and especially during COVID.
Yes.
The number of people who've been anxious about or concerned about losing their jobs and their livelihoods has had a huge.
There are reasons.
There are reasons.
If there are reasons, then these are not very serious problems. Counseling, or it gets over it.
With a little bit of support.
But do you know? I mean, without any reason, if someone keeps getting panic attacks, he needs psychiatric help.
Absolutely. And again, this many times, having a family physician who feels comfortable managing,
who has basic training in approaching mental health issues that occur in the community. A family physician with that kind of basic understanding and training will be a major asset to society.
Absolutely. I will take a somewhat related question, not entire, definitely connected. So one of our participants or viewers has asked, I have undergone treatment for depression recently. I am feeling fine now, but I am unable to face the world outside because I feel people will judge me. Please help. Thank you for this for sharing, and thank you for this call for help. Certainly, we are here to be of assistance. But Doc, this is again a very common situation, and many times this is a situation where which society sometimes doesn't necessarily understand or empathize adequately with. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the two issues. If his depression, that he is a depressive, we unnecessarily use the word mentally ill. That way, all of us are mentally ill. So you shouldn't use that word. I mean,
we're all human beings with all kinds of emotions, of course.
So if his illness, his depression, is known to all his circle of friends, and they all know and look at him with askance, and they're very, very reserved in their way they talk to this man, then his fears are real. Because he feels that, how can I meet with them? How can I talk to them? And that kind of a thing. But basically, in the social setup, most people are understanding.
If they are aware.
If there are. No, his problem is not that way. His problem is that question. Is that he is not afraid, he is afraid of facing
the world.
Facing the world. So the world is not just his friends. His worry is that others will come to know about him. We can reassure him. How will they know that? Even if they know, so what? It is not you're under management. You are taking medication. You are out of it, and you get on with life. So you have to reassure this guy slowly and steadily to get out of the house. Otherwise, you will stay inside the house and not go out.
Just to add to that, sometimes it helps to break down something this daunting and overwhelming into small steps. For example, what is the world? The world is so complex and there are so many things in the world. For example, even starting with something like, okay, why don't you go get milk today and say hello to the milkman?
Yes.
Why don't you go outside and have a cup of coffee today? Sometimes when you break, go meet a friend or a relative that you think will not be as threatening to meet. Spend 15 minutes with them and come back. Sometimes assisting and breaking this daunting task into a series of small steps and celebrating that small success. Oh, this morning I woke up in time. I woke up at 7 in the morning. I went for a walk. I bought milk and said hello to the milkman. Sometimes breaking it up into these small tasks and celebrating these small victories can really unlock the path to overcoming this issue. So it is 4:52 now. We have 5 more minutes. We have to end the session at five. Do you think we can take one more question?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think this is a great question. I really appreciate whoever sent this. Doc, what is the value of primary health care? Are we aligned with this, or is this being ignored? Has tertiary care become a business because of primary care ignorance?
They're directly asking me. My suspicion is maybe my patient.
Oh, there's one question which actually names you. So I'm going to link that up with this one, and then you can answer. Take both of them. Dr. B.C. Rao, this is for you. Dr. B.C. Rao, as an experienced family physician, do you treat your patients as minds and souls along with the body? If yes, how?
Yeah.
What is the acceptance level of the patients? Yeah. So perhaps you can take this question first, and then we can end it with a comment on primary healthcare.
See, as a family physician of some standing, practicing over many years, I realized one thing, that human being is not just a collection of organs. He has much more to him than just an illness. Clear. The illness many times is a presenting feature of a much deeper problem. And then understanding that essence, understanding that is the essence of family medical practice. So, my friend, I have always dealt with all these aspects of the personality. In my practice, sometimes, now I'm not greatly in practice, I see extremely few patients. But when I was in practice also, I would full-time practice. I would spend sometimes 10 minutes with one patient, another time 50 minutes with another patient. They may have come with the same problem. So that is what answers this question.
No, absolutely. No, health definitely has a physical dimension to it, mental dimension to it, spiritual dimension to it. It also has an ecological dimension to it and a social dimension. So, and perhaps finance gets linked with social, but there's a financial.
I tell you one thing, it's very interesting. It goes to the earlier question. You see, we always, in those days, even now some of us, we put the patient first.
Absolutely.
I never thought, how much this fellow is going to give me. He gave me, but that was not my thought. How best I could help this person come out of his problem. It may be mentally related, physically related. As you said, it may be nothing to do with this, something else. But then we always were trained, we looked at the problem from a different perspective. And then we built up trust. The trust, the relationship between the physician and the patient and the family was the crux on which family medicine was built. Today, that crux is missing. That crutch is also missing. And that is why you find there is so much of mistrust amongst people when they go to doctors. They don't go to doctors expecting the doctor to be a good human being who is going to look after me. There's always some fear associated with going to a doctor, especially so when they directly go to an institution. See, I have nothing against an institution-based doctor. Please forgive me if I am giving you that impression. It is not so. See, what happens there is one encounter with that patient, and an organ-based specialist is well trained to treat that organ-related illness. So what happens is, it's like a short and horse. So he will look into great detail about that particular complaint, which may be absolutely irrelevant to the patient concerned. But the patient is looking at this problem, the doctor is looking at a different problem. So he doesn't find a problem, he tells the patient, look here, Papa, you are otherwise all right, man. Now you still have it, please go to this guy. So what happens? To build trust, you have to have a continual relationship. That is now missing, and the patients are paying a very, very heavy price because of this loss of relationship.
And doctors too are paying a very heavy price because that the existence of that trust, those longitudinal relationships, they really enrich the lives of us doctors as well. So
the other aspect is technology. I keep coming to this. You see, technology should serve us. We should not become servants of technology. Now, today we have become servants of technology. Now, a doctor who is trained today thinks if somebody comes with a headache, not like what I think, he will first think, am I going to miss a brain tumor? That scares him, the doctor. So what he will do without going into it, I used to spend a lot of time taking history. Today, the first thing he jumps to is to write a prescription for an MRI or a brain scan or some such thing. So what happens is that the patient spends a lot of money, time, because the doctor has become a slave to the technology, which in a way is good because it takes a lot of things which you would otherwise not have done. But the problem is that the slave, the technology is driving the slave to do things which are not really required.
on that note, I guess the Kurukshetra of modern day practice is retaining the values of family medicine or retaining the values of person-centered care with the value technology brings us. In fact, that's the Kurukshetra of modern living. On that note, thank you very much, Project StepOne, for this opportunity. It's indeed a pleasure. And we actually will be back. We'll be back on the 16th of March. Look forward to that session as well. Thank you so much.
I hope this session has been useful to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rao.
Absolutely. So I think we've covered so many aspects today, from primary care to the importance of mental health to how technology has taken over to parenting tips. I think this was one of the most interesting and the best sessions so far. And we would probably we would never have consulted doctors for all these questions. We would have thought, maybe it's just okay to not ask, or it's just very common not to go and ask a doctor. But now we could see how important it is actually to seek a doctor's help for certain questions that were here. So thank you so much for taking time off your busy schedule and doing this wonderful yet very, very important session for us doctors. So and your patience level to answer each question, you took time to answer every question, and and I know that there are few more questions that are left, and you will be answering it in the next session. But thank you so much for that. And what is your take home message for the audience? What is your take home message?
Yeah, stay healthy. If you have a problem, first consult your family physician.
Correct. never ever fear to ask questions. I think we should all come out and ask more questions so that we have a proper and diagnosed answer for everything. So thank you so much. So audience, you all know that we will be back with one more interesting session next week. That is on Saturday. So stay tuned till then. And you know what to do. So go like our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn pages. And for more information on Project Step One, visit www.projectstep1.org. Thank you so much, Dr. R.K. Prasad and Dr. B.C. Rao, for doing this wonderful session for us and joining us today here. Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you so much.